The garden was not silent. It breathed. Leaves whispered to the wind. Rivers spoke as they moved. Light rested gently on everything it touched. Nothing was afraid. Humanity walked with God, not behind him, not ahead of him, but with him. There were no masks, no hiding, no shame, only trust. God had given them everything: trees heavy with fruit, water that never ran dry, work that never exhausted, love that never demanded proof. Only one boundary stood in the middle of all this abundance. One tree, one command. It wasn't a trap, but an invitation to trust, and trust is always tested by choice. The serpent did not arrive with force. He arrived with questions. Did God really say it? The word slid quietly into the air, not loud enough to alarm, just loud enough to linger. You see, doubt never begins as outright rebellion. It starts as curiosity. The serpent didn't deny God's generosity, he just reframed it. He took the one no and used it to poison 1,000 yeses. You won't die, he whispered. You'll be enlightened. You'll be like God. The lie was subtle, not that God wasn't powerful, but that God was withholding. And for the first time, humanity looked at God not as a loving father, but as a competitor. The fruit didn't glow, it didn't thunder, it just looked ordinary. Temptation rarely announces itself as destruction. It presents itself as an opportunity. The hand reached out. The bite was small, but eternity felt it. Nothing shattered, no lightning struck. The sky did not fall. Instead, eyes opened, and what they saw was not godhood. It was nakedness. Awareness rushed in like cold air. Self-consciousness was born. Comparison followed. And then fear. For the very first time, humanity felt exposed. Not to creation, but to God. So they hid among the very trees they had once named, among the leaves they had once tended, among blessings that now felt unsafe. And then God walked into the garden. He didn't arrive in rage. He didn't storm the gates. He walked, and he called out not because he didn't know where they were, but because he wanted to know where they thought they were. Where are you? It wasn't a question about location. It was a relational one. The answer was honest. I was afraid. Fear had just entered the human vocabulary. God asked more questions, not for information, but for confession. What have you done? And suddenly, blame was born. The man pointed to the woman. The woman pointed to the serpent. Responsibility shattered into fragments. Sin doesn't just break rules, it fractures relationships. God spoke consequences not as revenge, but as reality. The ground would resist. Pain would enter life. Death would now walk through time. But even in this judgment, grace spoke first. A promise was planted quietly, that the seed of the woman would one day crush the serpent's head. Redemption was announced before the exile even began. Then God made garments, not of leaves but real coverings. The first sacrifice, the first bloodshed, not demanded from humanity but provided by God. Because shame cannot be removed by our own effort, it requires grace. Then the gates of the garden closed, not to punish, but to protect. Eternal life in a broken state would have been unending cruelty. So humanity stepped out into a world where faith would be harder, work would be heavier, and God would feel farther away. But he never left. Every generation after would feel the echo of that moment. The pull toward independence, the whisper of distrust, the desire to define good and evil for ourselves, and yet so with the promise that this was not the end. The fall was real, but it was not final, because the same God who walked into that garden would one day walk into the world, not to hide, but to be seen, not to accuse, but to save.